Welcome to Sex Ed with DB. I'm your host, Danielle Bezalel. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the podcast. If you love and support the work that we do, join my crew on Patreon to win amazing prizes like our adorable merch, exclusive behind-the-scenes content, private sessions with yours truly, and incredible sex toys. Go to patreon.com/sexedwithdb to join my crew. Get discounts at all of my favorite brands at sexedwithdb.com. And follow us on Instagram at sexedwithdbpodcast and on TikTok at sexedwithdb. If you want to partner with us, email us at sexedwithdb@gmail.com. 5 reasons you will masturbate more with Freya. Number 1, masturbation increases the release of endorphins, which decreases stress, tension, and depression. Number 2, masturbation can help you sleep better. Number 3, masturbating can help strengthen and tone your pelvic floor. Number 4, masturbation can lessen period cramps. Number 5, masturbation can empower you to know your body better and know what feels good. Freya is the innovative premium razor and vibrator in one that gives you an amazing shave and the best clitoral workout ever. Use code SEXEDWITHDB to get 20% off your Freya. And for a limited time, you can enter to buy one Freya and get one for your bestie for free. Enter to win at highfreya.com/sexedwithdb now. In a world that constantly encourages you to change, it's bold to just be yourself. Sexual expression and satisfaction are different for everybody, so rather than conforming to others, focus on falling in love with who you are. Lion's Den sources the very best products to help you find what you like and help you feel confident expressing your sexual desires. You can get 15% off in-store and online using code SEXEDWITHDB at lionsden.com to begin exploring everything about yourself. Follow them on social at lionsdenadult on Instagram and TikTok. Let's play a little fill-in-the-blank game where you have to guess what goes in the blank. Cosmopolitan magazine called The Blank the little black dress of vibrators, and Time magazine named The Blank among the top 10 most influential gadgets of all time. Even at 50 years old, The Blank is still turning heads as the most recommended and best-selling massage wand in America. Any guesses? The answer is the Magic Wand. It's loved by millions for a reason. It's powerful and hits all the right pleasure points. Want to see what all the fuss is about? Go to sexedwithdb.com/magicwand to learn more and see how you could win your very own Magic Wand rechargeable. Let's talk about lube and condoms. Something important to know is that oil-based lube is not to be used with condoms because the oil can cause the condom to break or tear, which would defeat the purpose of using it. Thank goodness for Uberlube. Uberlube is latex compatible, so it's safe and effective to use with condoms. But wait, there's more. Dispensing 2 drops of Uberlube inside a condom and a measured pump outside will increase pleasure. What are you waiting for? Use code SEXEDWITHDB for 15% off at uberlube.com. When it comes to sex, most of us have never had access to proper education, especially when it comes to the butt. This means both beginners and experienced players have had to turn to porn, friends, or Reddit to figure out how to properly prepare, play, and care for our butts. This doesn't sound safe now, does it? That's where Future Method comes in. Future Method was founded by a doctor to help people have informed, healthy, amazing sex. Because we should feel good in our skin and when we're playing with our partners. If you want to learn more about how to bottom safely, go to futuremethod.com and use code SEXEDWITHDB for 15% off their amazing products. Melissa, hello. How's it going today?
Hi, nice to see you there.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to see you.
No, this is not our first time meeting. As we know, we have become, you're the only internet friend that I have ever made. Do you know that?
I think that's probably, I could say the same for you.
Yeah, it's like very strange. We like met and I like cold DM'd you after seeing your like absolutely wacky ass funny shit on TikTok and was like,
saying so.
Listen, we're going to be pals. Like, when are you free to chat? And from the
and then I got on the chit chat. Yep.
You got on the chit chat train and you were like, hey, let's talk and be pals. And I was like, no, I want to be pals. And then since, when was that? Like a year ago? Like how long ago was that?
Yeah, there's not that many people doing this crap online. You know what I mean? Very specific sexual health education content. It's kind of a niche. So to see someone else doing it, I'm kind of like, wow, my lucky day.
Yeah. Oh, my lucky stars.
Oh, my lucky stars. And you're good at organizing. Like you've organized this whole group together. It's like.
We do. Yeah. We have a group. It's like sex ed on TikTok. We have a couple people who we've kind of corralled into joining us to like learn from one another and try to teach the masses. But before we get really too ahead of ourselves, because people might be listening and be like, who the hell is this? Like, I've
And
never heard
why?
of her. And why is she here,
Why?
perhaps? So, why don't you introduce yourself to our pals listening and tell us about who the hell you are, your background, your work, etc.
Yes. Hello, pals listening. My name's Melissa. My training is a sexual health educator, and that's what I've kind of dedicated my career to for the past 50, 60 years. No, actually, no, like the past 13 years, I've been a sexual health educator, running sexual health programs. And I'm also a comedian. I'm also a director. I work on making, comedic videos and directing them and all of that. So that's a little bit about me.
Mm-hmm.
Thrilled to be live here.
We are live, but we are not. This is a pre-recorded interview.
Oh, okay. I thought this was live. Okay.
No one's watching this as we speak. Just us.
Thanks for clarifying.
And talk a little bit about your like TikTok presence. Like, what do you do on there? Tell me about your following, brag about it a little. Maybe also talk about your YouTube stuff, because I think the people might be interested to hear.
Yeah, well, TikTok has been such a wonderful community that I've found. I started putting out comedic sexual health education videos. So they're all with the background of like, I have training in teaching sexual health education. That's been my career. So it's all like fact-based stuff, but I really try and distill the topics down to kind of silly, simple messages. And most of them have been music videos. And that's what I have been focusing on TikTok. And I've been really lucky to get a group of people who really enjoy or seem to enjoy this crap, and they laugh.
We definitely
and
enjoy.
Sometimes they learn. You're one of them. Thank you. It's been a really interesting place to be developing this kind of content. So that's that. YouTube, I also put, my sexual health music videos on YouTube, and I have other video series stuff on YouTube that I've done that's not sexual health related. So now we cover the range of topics, but what I've been focusing on the last couple of years is really the sexual health education musical content.
Right.
Because, it's hard to remember facts about sexual health, and you can remember it through song. I mean, why not?
That's
Queefs,
really true.
Air, pubes, hair,
Those are your key staples, I would say.
Right.
You do also talk a lot about like STIs and the fact that like a lot, condoms, a lot of people could have STIs. It's so, it's common. Like it's like a lot of destigmatization and like funny ways to do that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've stood up in front of a classroom, maybe hundreds, if not thousands of times talking about condoms. And it's like, everyone knows about condoms, everyone knows. But it's like, how do I really distill that down into something that someone's going to watch? What I did was I got this rideable horse. It's like a bike, but it's a horse. Okay.
Can you take this outside?
Yeah. Okay, you can take it outside. And I do. And let me tell you this. It's like a bike, but it's a horse. Okay, so don't stay with me. So I got that for a separate project, but now I'm thinking, okay, how do I get this message out about condoms? I take that bike, that horse, and I bring it to the skate park where there's like half pipes and stuff. Okay. And I start riding. And there's skaters. I live in California. There's skaters. People are riding. People are vibing. And then I show up in like a visor, and I'm on that horse bike, and I'm like literally I'm zooming down half pipes. Like zooming. And it's awesome. And I'm singing about condoms. You know what I'm saying? And then I get that filmed. So then
a better job. I can't.
Well, then that's kind of like the end product is me, and there's people kind of looking like, what's she up to? And it's like, well, I'm singing about condoms.
Right. You're able then to be like, this is what I do for a fucking living. Like, this is my life's work.
I'm an adult, and like, this is midday on like a Wednesday, and here I am making this. So yeah, it's kind of like that. And I don't know how effective it is, to be perfectly honest with you, to sing it like that, but I do know it's something. So.
Ooh, I kind of like that. Maybe there's like an after video research poll that you can give, because as you know, as a trained sex educator, the main way that we measure success is through surveys after we teach folks and say, okay, how do you feel about the following statement? After these 2 classes, I have 3 practical ways to learn about, safe sex. Totally agree, somewhat agree, blah, blah, blah. And maybe there's like a how much from this horse condom video did you learn about the practical uses of condoms? And like maybe we can measure effectiveness of these like wacky vids.
See, this is your MPH background and this is the good stuff. But for me, I'm kind of thinking, how do we track like the question would have to be like, yeah, how amped up, or I like to say Mountain Dewed up. It's like I'm excited. How Mountain Dewed up do I feel about talking about condoms now that I saw this person riding that horse? Like, does it kind of give off this like, but that's something that's hard to measure, I think, in pre and post tests. How
That's
rowdy do I feel?
totally
How
fair.
Mountain Dewed up? Like, could we do that in a study? Like, how Mountain Dewed up do you feel?
I think that is the literal terms that the researchers would use.
Oh, it's good. 78%. Okay.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about your sex ed growing up. I think one of the reasons why I feel a total kinship to you is because you're a Jersey gal. I'm a Long Island freak. You're you're putting up the horns for those listening who can't see you, because this is again not a live show.
Oh, I thought this was live.
You are Jewish. I'm Jewish. There's something here with our kinship, but specific to your sex ed growing up, I would imagine that Jersey and Long Island, aka New York, have pretty similar, backgrounds when it comes to what they're teaching the middle schoolers in, the early 2000s, late 90s, et cetera. And so I'm curious to hear from you. What was that like? What the heck? And when did you know that you wanted to do this work full time?
Yeah, it's a good one. My best trait is that I'm from New Jersey. You know what I mean? It brings me so much confidence every single day. I walk around, like I walk tall. I'm like, yep, I'm from New Jersey. So what's up with you? That kind of thing. I mean, It's huge for me. So anyway, New Jersey, I didn't realize like we're so lucky to have grown up where we went. I went to public school and public school just happened to provide comprehensive sex ed. So I will say like elementary and middle school left a little bit to be desired. My high school sex ed was what really got me interested in this topic, but I'll let you know. So like, I remember being young and I remember not understanding. People were talking about sex and they were like, when we were in like elementary or early middle school, and I was like, I don't quite understand what we're talking about. And I asked my friend Dana and she was like, I know about this. Like my mom explained to me what it was. And I was like, okay, so let me know what it is. And then she was like, okay,
Spill the
well,
beans.
Yeah. And then she's like, okay, let me figure out how do I explain this? So she looks over and we had our hermit crabs were having a play date that day. She said, bring your hermit crab over. Let's have them play.
Hermit crabs were really popular in the mall scene, like on Long Island for sure as well.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, they're the worst pet. They stink. They
smell like absolute trash.
They smell bad. And like, they don't kiss, like I like to kiss my animals. I mean, right. I had a lizard. I kissed that thing on the mouth. Okay.
Could have been a dangerous kiss, but
I mean,
okay.
Yeah, it was called
Reptilian
an anal.
Kisses?
Yeah, it was called an anal and it was smooth and green and small. And I would kiss that thing on the mouth.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. So
I hear.
Let me just kind of circle back. So we had these hermit crabs. They were having a play date and she goes, okay, I'll show you what sex is. I'll mate these crabs and I'll explain it that way. And I was like,
force mating.
I was like, I don't know if you want to mate them, but I guess let me know. Let's see what happens. And then basically the second you pick them up, that's the other reason why they're a bad pet. The second you pick them up, they go into their shells. They're like, nope, I'm not letting this fifth grader do anything to me. I don't blame them for doing that. I'm glad they went back in their shells. But then, she couldn't explain. Plus, hermit crabs don't even have, I don't even know if they have like, genital. I don't know what's going on.
That they like lay? Like, I have no idea.
It wasn't going to work. Like what she was doing wasn't going to work, but I appreciated the effort. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, go Dana. I do appreciate her to this day for that, but it didn't explain anything to me. So then I go to middle school. My health teacher was like extremely nervous to teach this stuff to us. Like she was like shaking. And it's like, I understand. It is very specific to want to talk about this stuff. Most people are like, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to like mess up and by accident traumatize some students. Like I really want to do right by these kids, but I don't know what to say. So I don't blame her, but she was shaking. Okay. She was so nervous.
Wow.
Her voice was really soft. We didn't learn anything. We did crossword puzzles. about like testicles and,
Oh my God.
So like, that's not good. Then I went in high school, I had a teacher who literally taught really comprehensive sex. She just decided, I'm going to make sure that my students get this info. She did a question box. She answered every single one of our questions. And it was the first time I had an adult, be like, you deserve to know this information. I'm going to answer this factually, non-judgmentally, make it not a big deal. And everyone was just like, oh. And I literally remember getting my question answered and being like, oh, wow. This is so powerful to have an adult just answer a question and not make a big deal about it. I want to do that someday. And then I kind of just got obsessed with the topic. And I'm like, if I can take my New Jersey chutzpah and kind of use it for some good, I'm going to talk about this stuff. And literally throughout college, I studied, I worked in sexual health education. I did that in the dorms. And then I got a job working in sexual health education straight after college and basically did it for the past decade. So it really did inspire me.
So great. Have you told that teacher that you were really affected?
So funny. I need to let her know. I told her right after I graduated from high school how much it meant to me and during college, but I should really go back to her and be like, look what I've done. Look at all this crap that I've done thanks to you.
She would be so proud. Like if she just watched a couple of your like Mons Pubis videos, like by the way, me and my fiance literally around the house consistently just go Mons Pubis, and it's very catchy stuff.
Thank you for saying so. I mean, that is thanks to Kelly Rowland. I mean, it's her song Motivation. That's the other thing. That's her instrumental.
Right, but the lyrics are really what tap into my soul. And speaking of tapping into souls, as we get in front of these youths and we really, as your teacher did to you, tapped into your soul to be able to do this work, right? Like, I want to know about what a really memorable interaction has been with a student as a sex educator. And let me just interrupt myself before you even speak, because I have a fun story and I would love to hear what you think about this. Double horns now, listeners. That's what's happening. So one of my most memorable interactions in front of students actually happened within the last year or so. I was in a private liberal Brooklyn Richie Rich school, right? So that's the context, right? Probably costs $20,000 a year for these private middle school students to just basically have a school that looks like an Apple store. It's just really open and really, everyone has their own laptops and
communal space.
Communal space. So that's number one, right? This is not the usual population. So that's what I want to first say. It was pretty diverse. Definitely, as we've talked about in the past, folks identify as all sorts of things, their sexuality, their genders, middle schoolers. It's a very fertile ground for experimentation and figuring out what labels feel good. And so there was a lot of that, which was very cool to see. But this one particular conversation we had around enthusiastic consent was so fascinating. We'll call this student Owen, even though that was not his real name. We're protecting his anonymity, this child. Mm-hmm. Owen kind of raised his hand while I was kind of defining what enthusiastic consent was and sharing, it's really important that we have an enthusiastic yes every time. If it's a maybe, then it's a no. If it's a no, it's a no, etc. If it's a yes and then a no, it's a no. You could change your mind, all those things. And Owen, in a very sweet, kind way, raises his hand and says, but Danielle, what about if a couple really wants to get pregnant and they're not really in the mood to have sex and they're still consenting anyway, but it's not necessarily enthusiastic? Wouldn't you say that's still consent because it's a little tricky? And I was like, excuse me, you're 12. How are you capable of sharing this level of nuance? This youth is talking about a couple that theoretically is together for enough time to decide, right? They're deciding that they want to have a baby together for however long they've been together. Usually people decide that when they're, at least 6 months into a relationship, if they're having a conversation around that. Some people maybe earlier, but I'm picturing a long-term couple here, right? Maybe even a couple of years. And the fact that he was able to see this idea that, when people are ovulating and you have to have sex on certain times of the month in order to try to have a baby, that might be messing around with the idea of enthusiastic consent. I was blown away by this child.
That's amazing.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, I mean, that's what blows me away about this work is that there's a lot of adults that are that go in or I need to teach all this stuff to young people. The fact is young people are incredibly smart. they're the experts in their own lives. And I believe that. And they know so much. And I feel like the beauty of sex ed is we come in as people who are trained enough to know how to facilitate these conversations, to be able to like allow that to come up. You know, I don't feel like I'm going in and delivering facts to people. I feel like I'm going in and allowing for him to ask those types of questions in a safe and non-judgmental space. So I think that's really cool. That's amazing. Just to be able to have that nuance and to be able to have the bravery to ask it in front of a group.
And it's so unique because, like, you know, obviously, most likely this 12-year-old has never had sex before.
Right.
Most likely they like don't necessarily know about like the details about when you have to have sex at the exact time of ovulation. This is advanced conversations. And so I was just really appreciative of his comment. And so I'm curious if there was like a moment like that for you where you were like, oh my God, you've like really broke open the mold here of sex education.
That's a great one. I think that, that just illustrates how brilliant young people really are. And when given the space to have those conversations, especially, I think what sticks out for me is just time and time again, you know, you go in and many times you have a set curriculum that, you know, you're meant to deliver, and you're like, okay, I got to get through this information. But where the magic really is of this stuff is allowing, like asking what's important to you, like what questions do you all have? And a lot of times, you know, you'll get questions that are really nuanced like that. I mean, sometimes you get questions where you're like, am I bad at this? Like I remember doing I remember doing like a 60-minute session on anatomy, like 60 minutes. Like I have pit stains, like I'm giving it 100%.
Right.
And I have a kid at the end, like at 56 minutes, raise his hand, goes, okay, wait. So you're saying the vagina is the same thing as the butthole? I'm like, okay. I'm like, so no, I'm not saying that.
Not what I'm saying.
So actually I'm not saying that at all, but it makes me kind of think, okay, let me rewind. I have like 4 minutes left. I've done 56 minutes. I'm like, no. Let's start at the very beginning. I'm like, okay. Generally, though, I'm honestly floored by the amount of knowledge young people have. And it's less about facts. I'm like, oh, you know, to me, it's more about facilitating conversations because, you know, people know, oh, like condoms are less effective at this way, birth control, There's like a lot of facts that, you know, we think, oh, young people need to know these facts. People don't care about the facts. People remember like how they felt in a room. So I'm always concerned with like, am I creating a space where people can like breathe out and exhale and kind of like relax a little bit about something that's really embarrassing and maybe laugh a little bit, maybe, you know, kind of just feel okay so that when they're out in their real lives, they're like, okay, I remember that kind of wacky person that came to my class. She was like, she had pit stains. She was like really giving it her all. She kind of went for it. Stains. I'm like, yeah, I have them now.
Okay. Oh, okay. Good. Good thing
that nobody can see this. Nobody can see this because we're not live.
Once again, it's not live.
Okay. No, but one thing I did, it kind of sparked my memory, was a lot of the work that I did earlier in my career was building an after-school program around sexual health. So it's like, you know, there's classroom education where students in their health classes get this information, and maybe they're not asking to be there. They're like, oh, someone's coming to my health class and delivering a class. So they're like, okay, I have to be here. But I was working on building an after-school type program where students self-select. They're like, I want to be part of this. I want to learn more about this stuff. I want to be a resource for my peers and community. And I remember I was recruiting at a new school that we were starting it up at, and I couldn't get students. Like it was really, really hard to find students that would join because it was a brand new thing. They're like, learn about what? Like, I don't want to do that. Well, who cares? Like, and I'm like, okay. And I had these kids, there were these kids who were like in detention after school in this classroom where I was recruiting. And I just kind of sat down with them and I was like, yeah, guys, I'm trying to start this program. And like, I haven't gotten any interest yet. Like, can you guys just be in my program? Like, what are we doing?
Please help me.
I'm like, I need like something here. So anyway, they came and like brought their friends, and like, they weren't the type of kids who would ever be like, I'd like to apply for that. They were just like, all right, I guess you're bringing snacks. Like, I'll come to it.
That's all they care about. Kids really just want the food. Just bring it.
it turned out, I mean, they came for the food, and I mean, it was popcorn, yummy things, and then ultimately they would come back every week. And it was this really special community that we created among these students who kind of just trusted. They were like, all right, I'll try this. Fast forward like 7 years later, one of the kids emailed me and was like, I just wanted to let you know, like, I don't know, like that program really impacted me and it really helped me. And I just wanted you to know that. And it was like, it's so
chills.
Yeah, it was so powerful because it's not like someone who sought it out. He just kind of trusted. He's like, all right, I'll go along with this. And then for him to literally remember that many years later that it actually impacted him and to let me know was just so rewarding. So that reminds me to tell my high school teacher how much it impacted me.
It really does make people want to keep going in their career. I think like especially as teachers, right? And like we're not even like teachers in the classroom every single day. Like it's a hard fucking job and like underpaid, underappreciated, like overworked. There's so much work and effort that goes into teaching behind the scenes in the classroom. You're up all day. You're like going above and beyond for what most people don't really appreciate. And I think like that little extra comment can really make someone's day and make someone's year even.
Yeah, it really did for me. I mean, that was still already some years ago and I still think about it and it's like, wow, I'm grateful that they trusted me to try the program and that it actually affected them. That was really rewarding.
Excitement, intimacy, anticipation, contentment. Uberlube lets you feel all the things you want to feel when it comes to sex with yourself and with a partner. It makes sex better for everyone by reducing friction and increasing pleasure. Recommended by leading doctors, Uberlube is body-friendly, free of parabens, preservatives, and petrochemicals. Plus, Uberlube is latex compatible, so it's safe, effective, and pleasurable to use with condoms. Try Uberlube now with code SEXEDWITHDB for 15% off at uberlube.com. Let me tell you about one of my favorite sex toy shops out there, Lion's Den. If you haven't heard about Lion's Den before, I can't wait to tell you all about them. Lion's Den first opened its retail facility in Columbus, Ohio in 1971. That's right, over 50 years ago. Since then, they have grown to more than 50 outlets throughout the US, building its reputation on high-quality products, low prices, and a knowledgeable sales staff. Their staff are also sexual wellness experts who can help you find the perfect toy. One of the many things I love about Lion's Den is that they advocate for a sex-positive perspective on intimacy and sexual well-being, and strive to break the stereotypes and stigma surrounding sex by providing comprehensive educational resources to empower everyone to enjoy life to the fullest. They're simply amazing. Lucky for you, Lion's Den is giving my listeners an exclusive discount of 15% off your purchase in-store and online with code SEXEDWITHDB at lionsden.com. What are you waiting for? Get your amazing Lion's Den toy now. Understanding how to love ourselves and our bodies can take practice, time, and energy. Freya believes that it's really important to invest in loving the body you're in, and pleasure plays a huge part in that. I know it does for me. When I'm able to access my pleasure, I'm able to feel and see my body in a whole new way. My pleasure empowers me. That's why I love Freya. It's more than a razor and a vibe. It's a movement to practice loving ourselves with intention. For those who haven't tried a vibrator, this is a great first-timer product to venture into and explore your own pleasure. Learn more about Freya and their self-love movement at highfreya.com/sexedwithdb. When it comes to anal sex, what comes to mind? If you're a beginner like so many of us out there, maybe you feel scared, unsure, or just plain uneducated. Future Method can help with that. Founded by a doctor and anal sex expert, Future Method develops science-backed products and non-judgmental doctor-led education to maximize pleasure, eliminate injury, and empower the way people choose to play in the bedroom. They even have a blog started by the gay community and now for everyone that puts education at the forefront on topics both popular and taboo. Use code SEXEDWITHDB for 15% off at futuremethod.com. Finally, we can travel again. If you're like me, I bet you want a little pleasure while you're away, but can't fit your entire sex toy collection in your carry-on, huh? Say hello to the Magic Wand Mini. Born into such a famous family, this little wand has quite a reputation to uphold. Challenge accepted. Offering big power, multiple speeds, and unsurpassed quality, the full-featured Magic Wand Mini is more than simply a smaller sibling. It's here to create a legacy all its own. Want to win a Magic Wand Mini for your next trip or staycation? Go to sexedwithdb.com/magicwand to learn more. Okay, I'm wondering, out of all of your years of teaching sex ed in the classroom, I know you said like maybe kids don't really care about facts, but maybe when it comes to like content that students are like consistently surprised by, or like a lot of them are like, oh, I didn't know that, or I've never heard of that before. Like what really comes up when it comes to that? I think for me, briefly, it's really like me being like, oh, HPV, the human papillomavirus, is the #1 STI in the United States. And there are so many different ways that you can have it. And it's really important about the Gardasil shot. And there's so many things about HPV that I definitely wasn't taught. And I feel like I only knew about because my mom was a fucking OBGYN and she
Lucky
shot
duck.
me up with Gardasil in my kitchen as a youth. She just brought it home and she was like, here are the shots over. You're getting it. And I was like, okay, I don't know what this is. But yeah, that's one that I think people are really surprised by on my end.
You're loaded up.
Uh-huh.
I remember getting that Gardasil shot, and next thing I knew, I took some type of Benadryl because it was like hurting, and I fell asleep for 8 hours, woke up fresh as a bird. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
good thing. It's funny, yeah, because that's really interesting. I don't think that my students were ever really that surprised. I just, by any of the content. I think what shocks me is that young people do know a lot of this stuff, or at least in my experience, they know a lot of these things. And what I think surprises them is when they're given a space to be like, what questions do you have? What matters to you? Like, what do you think about this? Like, what do you think about this topic? Like, what do you think about consent? How does it look? How can it look? What's important for other people to know? I think that I found students being like, you're asking me that? Like, aren't you the teacher? And I'm like, yeah, but I think like the learning is when we can all kind of process out loud what we've heard, the messages that we've heard from a million different places, and like where we can actually start to unpack that and be like, oh, well, I was taught this, but actually this makes more sense. So how do I make sense of all of that? So that was always my focus, and still is, even though I'm doing these silly videos, like it's still, my goal always is opening up conversations. And I don't really think of myself as an expert in this field. I mean, I know kind of the bare minimum of.
You definitely are.
But honestly, like I know a bit about all the sexual health topics, but I feel like what my skill set is being able to have comfortable conversations about it. But right. I'm not, if you ask me like 10 facts about HPV, I'd be like, okay, like I can list a few. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I think it's different though, like for doctors, right? And other medical health professionals who like maybe have studied this like more scientific information. I just see us as like being able to navigate those resources and being able to be like, oh, here, let me like find the book on that for you or find the article on that for you. I was thinking about that too of like, oh, does it matter that like without a curriculum or without a slideshow that I wouldn't be able to like name all of these things about birth control? And I don't really think it does. I don't know what like memory about it really serves. I mean, I think like the fact that we have access to all these things all the time, it's like, that's good enough, right?
Totally. And I think people don't necessarily remember the facts, like this percentage and that percentage, and this many people have this and this many. I feel like what people want to feel is just a level of comfort, because you're going to have to talk to a healthcare provider, for better or for worse. You're going to have to talk to a healthcare provider about those specific clinical questions, right? But I see my role as a sexual health educator as like, how do I give you kind of the confidence and maybe words and tools to be able to ask that question and not shy away from it, like to a partner, to a healthcare provider, to a parent? Like, how do I help you feel like, okay, I could say that out loud?
Totally. Yeah. And especially the parent piece. I mean, when we're dealing with kids and when we're chatting with them, like we want them to be able to chat with their parents. That's always like #1 ideal situation. If you are able to chat with a parent or guardian or like aunt or loved one about the things that you need, but that's not feasible for a lot of people. So I feel like in my sexual health classes, and kids are really surprised by this too, I make a slide every time of like, here's what you want to do if you don't want your parents to know. Like, here's how you access STI testing and birth control without a parental figure or without parental consent in your state. Like, here's your right as a young person, as a youth, as a youngin', to be able to access those tools because you deserve them. And if your parents are like basically going against what you want and need, that's a human rights issue. And like, you deserve to have what you need in order to make the best decisions for yourself. So I think that is fun to be like, ideally you'd go to your parents. If not, please see slide 3C. Like, it's just like, okay, let's do that.
There's a delicate balance, right? Like, we know how impactful it can be to have a supportive parent around this stuff. Like, I mean, you're lucky you had an OBGYN as a mom who I assume talked to you about this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a protective factor. That is like hugely impactful on a young person to have a parent to talk to say like, how do I figure this out? How do I access this? And the reality is that it's important for everybody to know that they have rights around getting the care that they need. And yeah.
Totes. Yeah. Totals magodals. Let's transition to your weird shit you do on TikTok because okay. As I mentioned, when I first saw your content, I was like, oh, this shit is so weird and so funny. And I think it's hard to describe on a podcast. So everyone, like, pause the podcast, pause whatever platform you're using, and go search at the big Lissa, Lissa, on TikTok. Give her a follow because she deserves it, and you're gonna laugh your little poopy off. Is the vagina? Are you telling me the vagina is the same thing as the butthole? Just be honest with me.
Just like level with me right now. Like, is that what we're talking about for the past 60 minutes? Tell me the fucking minutes?
Truth.
Like, just level with me.
Just honestly, like, stop joking around here. I want to know about your journey on TikTok. I want to know, like, get into the deets about like how you make your videos. I know you do a lot of lives for folks who, you know, follow you. What are some maybe like pros and cons of using the platform to get content out to young people who you want to reach?
Yeah, I have absolutely loved creating this stuff on TikTok. I feel like I have found the TikTok community to be incredibly accepting and like way funnier than I could ever be in terms of the comments that the things that they comment on my videos like are a million times funnier than I could ever strive to be. And that really eggs me on to keep going because I'm just I mean, you should look at the comments. Like, I remember I posted one video about me singing about the genital anatomy or something. And I'm really going for it. Like, Gen Z is kind of like, they're you know, they're kind of like, let's do less and like, you know, whatever. But I'm a millennial and like, I'm going for it. Like, I'm putting on costumes. I have pit stains. I am really singing at the top of my lungs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so then I remember I posted a video about the genital anatomy and someone comments, wow, I wish I didn't have eyes and ears after watching this video. Like, yeah, that is so funny to comment that. And after I went so hard, I really have found it to be an incredibly supportive community. And that's why I keep going. I do live streams. I started off before, you know, TikTok and before live streaming was really a major thing. I did a sexual health musical called The King of the Beanie Babies, where I anointed myself the king.
Of course.
Well, and I did a run of it at the Hollywood Fringe Festival. But basically, I'm like singing. Okay, the premise was, the real story is I found like a big plastic bag of Beanie Babies in my mom's closet. And I was like, okay, so can I have these? Like, what are we doing with these? And she was like, well, I'm saving them she said, I'm saving them as gifts for little kids. They're brand new. I'm like, so they're not brand new because we got those in like the 90s. But she's like, they still have the tags. I'm like, right, we kept the tags.
That's on purpose, Mom.
That's on purpose, Mom. So basically she said, okay, you can take half of them. And I took half of them back with me to California. And I was like, look, I had this idea. I'm like, these Beanie Babies have been in a closet for 20 something years. They know nothing. I got to teach them everything about sexual health. I'm a sexual health educator.
Wow. Okay.
So cut to me singing at the top of my lungs, you know, everything you need to know about this stuff. So I was doing that, you know, I was doing that live in the real world. And then I started doing it kind of on live stream, you know, when that started becoming a thing. And that gets a little old, you know, me calling myself the king of the Beanie Babies. And everyone's kind of like, okay, where are the Beanie Babies? I'm like, you know what? I'm sick of the Beanie Babies. I don't want to look at them.
It's time to move on. Yeah.
It's time to move on. So then I cut the Beanie Babies, and now I've just been kind of, you know, freeballing it, as we say.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And you have loyal followers who attend your lives as well.
It is the most beautiful thing. These people like who started watching will come back. I do them weekly. I have been doing them weekly for the past couple of years, and people come back time and time again. And like, people have been coming for multiple years even, and they know each other. And we have this really great community where people come every week, some of them, to these live shows. And the lives are me singing and dancing and whatever, but it's also me talking just as a person, like how I'm talking now. Like I can't keep up the persona for like 60 minutes.
So perfect segue into our next cue, which I will ask right now. Obviously, like the way I would describe your videos is like weird, funny, cringy, bizarre, hilarious, my favorite kind of humor. And I'm wondering like how true the persona that you use, which in my eyes, not exactly is akin to like Miranda sings, because that's a little bit like absolutely wild, I would say. But or like Chicken Shop Girl, right? Where it's kind of like this very particular kind of persona. And I'm wondering like, how true is it to who you actually are versus like this character that you've created? Like, how did you even create this character? Like, this is very different from like other sex educators, right? Like usually people bring their like real quote unquote selves in some capacity, which I think this character kind of also might be, right? But it is different from who you actually are.
Yeah. I'm just like, I'm like a person. I'm just I'm like, I'm a normal kind of just like whatever person. But It's funny you call my stuff cringe. Somebody described my videos recently as post cringe, which I like.
What does that even fucking
That
mean?
resonates a lot because it's like, okay. I think as silly as my stuff is, I take this stuff extremely seriously. Like I really care deeply about making sure that the information gets out there, that it's factual and that it's not harming anybody, and that in fact it's empowering as many people as possible. So I'm seeing queefs, air, pubes, hair. Like that is dumb, but I've thought a lot about it. I've thought a lot about how to sum that up. And so it's with a lot of intention, believe it or not. So I'm like a professional, kind of like normal person. I also have this side of me that's like kind of anarchic, and my comedy is kind of anarchic. Like it's kind of like, I really get excited at the thought of like breaking open the mold and like not going through the same hoops. So that is something that inspires me. So I think there's part of my personality that's, gonna get on that horse bike and go on the skate park and be singing about condoms. Naturally. And that kind of riles me up. But at the same time, I can do like a pretty normal, just in this kind of a voice, like explain the effectiveness of condoms and how it's really important to find one that works best for your body. And there's different types and different materials and different styles, So when I was in the classroom for all those years, I'm not like doing armpit farts and stuff like that. Like I'm just like I'm just delivering the information. But I think I kind of allow myself to let loose and kind of get a little more rowdy because I'm finding that people are responding to it because they're like, oh my God, this person's being so like putting themselves out there. Like maybe I can do that in my own little way in a conversation with a partner. Like that's the goal, right?
I like that.
I would get up in front of a, group of students and I'm like, a lot of the trainings I would do are like, asking people to get up and share what they think or like create a scene about a certain topic or something. And I'm like, how can I ask someone to do that if I'm not also putting myself out there? So I do believe like there's an ethos about like, I got to put myself out there if I'm asking other people to get vulnerable around these really stigmatized topics. So that also feeds kind of what I do.
I love it. I'm really into that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense of like, see like how much of a fool I just made of myself. Now at least you could just talk to your partner about like something normal, about like condom use or like contraception or whatever. But yeah, I'm really into that. And yeah, if you listener, I beg of you, please go watch some content. Please show it to your family, show it to your siblings. They're gonna fucking love it as much as I do, I'm sure.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Moving right along. Moving right along. We have a couple other things I want to cover here. I want to learn about the project that you're creating, and I want to know like, what is it? What are you working on? I also would like to know what are other like favorite pieces of content out there that you consume that are teaching like healthy sexuality and sex education. Like, tell me it all.
Yeah, I'm focusing on creating projects and content and work that people would want to watch like outside of a school setting. Like I've always created, educational content, and I know some teachers who like use it in their classroom, whatever. I like the idea that someone would want to watch this stuff outside of school with their friends because it's like funny and silly enough, but they're actually learning. So my my driving force right now is creating stuff that's equally educational and comedic. So it fits both of those things. And that it shows conversations that you can have with a partner, with a parent, with a healthcare provider about these things that are hard to talk about. And even if it does it in a silly way, it leaves you being like, oh, okay, I could say that. Even if I say something silly, I know how to start that conversation. Because that's really what it's about, right? Like we all remember feeling so awkward and so embarrassed about our bodies changing and like feeling like, oh, like how do I navigate this? And if I can lighten that a little bit, lighten someone's load a little bit for that, that's my ultimate goal. I mean, so that's my focus. I am creating the work that I'm creating because I don't really see it yet. Like I haven't really seen an example of something that's truly equally comedic and educational. I've seen stuff that's comedic, and I think sometimes
like big mouth, a little educational.
There's definitely some education woven in there. And I've seen stuff like Sex Education, I think is an amazing show that shows like in a narrative way, like how this stuff can show up in relationships and families and school and everything. I think it's brilliant. And I'm seeing this gap of something that is like feel good, educational, and funny all at the same time. So that's like the kind of gap that I'm seeing and that I think I can fill. And that's what I'm really excited to fill.
Nice. Yeah. I've also been noticing like Planned Parenthood, like on their YouTube channel, has some really interesting kind of like mixed media when it comes to like claymation and animation. And then there's also like people kind of describing like what things are. I feel like when I was younger, like in my early 20s, that is the exact kind of content that I pictured myself creating. It's like fun that like I have a podcast and I'm on TikTok and like all these things. And I'm sure it's similar for you of like creating your brand. And I don't know if it's exactly like where you wanted to be or, now I'm sure like you're so happy you're here. But for me, when I see some of those videos and not just Planned Parenthood, but other kinds of sex education content, there's like Amaze and there's advocates for youth who are making really, really valuable content. And I'm like, that is what I wanted to be making. I'm so glad that like someone is doing it. Like there is something really special being like, wow, like that is exactly what I envisioned for myself. And I'm glad that it's out there and that I'm doing something else, but something that like supplements that.
Totally. I think that's a really cool thing. I think this applies to any field, but I've felt the same way, like seeing, different creators' videos over the years and being like, Lacey Green back in the day was creating all of these like sexual health education videos.
I think she went to UC Berkeley also. Yeah, Go did. Bears, Lacey Green. Go Bears.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for saying
so. Thank
you. Shan Boudram was doing all these videos on YouTube a while back, like seeing these people who were so smart, so educational, and like creating this. I remember being like, wow, that is so amazing. And yes, Planned Parenthood's videos, Amaze's videos, Advocates for Youth, all of these entities and people are creating stuff in the way that they do best. And it's like, there is so much room for all of that. Like we need stuff that's, fact-based. We need stuff that's fun. We need stuff that's like for kids. We need stuff that's for older people. Like there's just so much room for it. So you as well. I mean, that's exciting. It's exciting that we're doing this all through different ways,
Yeah, it's really cool. And it's really fun to like meet new friends, especially like the work that we're doing is really independent and individualistic. And it is hard for me, at least as like an extreme extrovert, to feel like, oh, like I don't really have like colleagues in the same way that other people do in their office or whatever. Like that's shifting and changing with work from home stuff too. But it's nice to meet people who are in their own niches and figure out how we can uplift each other because the information is equally as important. It's just different.
Totally. Totally agree. And I really appreciate the way that you're such a good organizer and like getting all of these people together, especially like the TikTok group, like we all do very different type of content, but it's all in the same realm and it all kind of complements each other in a way. And I feel like you've created this really special group of people who like all get along and have ultimately the same goals of getting this info out there. It's just in different modalities.
Fuck yeah. And it's really hilarious how like we haven't met in person. That will come soon.
Yeah.
Once again, us being internet friends is very interesting and very fun to navigate that and find a friendship with someone who you're like, you're fucking cool. I want to hang out with you. But, I'm really grateful that you were here today. I have a blast chatting with you. Like always love hanging, kicking it, being a silly goose. And I'm wondering if you can share where folks can find you and find your content.
People can find me online.
www.me.com
kind of thing. I mean, my handle is the big Lissa across the board. And I do,
Great.
and
Simple.
I do that because I am short. You don't even know that.
I think that I made a comment when I was on one of your lives of being like, are you like 4'11"? Like, what is your height?
I'm 5'3", but I am short.
Oh, okay. Okay. 5'3" is like average height. I think like 5'4" is like the typical height for like a woman.
What are you?
The average? I'm 5'6" and 3/4.
You're like, I'm 6'8". Okay. Wait,
I can dunk. No, I'm 5'7". I round up. I say I'm 5'7".
You can dunk.
I cannot. No, I can't. I can't even jump like 6 inches off the ground. Like, it's pathetic.
Well, you better work on that before we meet.
Well, is there going to be a dunking contest? All right, we don't need to.
There's going to be a jumping contest. It's not dunking.
Listen, we can let these people go. I think they're tired of us already. Maybe like in 5 years, look out for some sort of comedy special that me and the big Lissa do together. We'll see. But thank you for having me on my own show.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for having you. Both.
Correct.
Thanks for having us.
Our creator, host, and executive producer is me, Danielle Bezalel, aka DB. Our co-producer and communications lead is Catherine Cohen. Our co-producer is Brian Peoples. Our social media intern is Sarah Kelly. Our music theme is by Hook Sounds. Thank you so much to our featured guests, partners, and our listeners. Want to advertise with us? Email us at sexedwithdb@gmail.com. For more sex ed content, follow us on IG at sexedwithdbpodcast and on TikTok at sexedwithdb. See you next time.